Welcome back to the Trading Post. It's me, Fred, and of course the man of the show, Noodle. He just woke up. He's all, look at that. He's getting big. You're getting to be a big boy, ain't you? Yeah, you are. You're growing good. Anyways, you guys hang in here because this one's part 2 of flight disappearances, and we're going to talk about the missing Flight 19 Avengers and the PBM-5 rescue search plane that tried to find them. So you guys hang tight. We're going to talk more about this, talk about the theories, all kinds of stuff. Okay, hang tight. All right, everybody. Now, Flight 19. Flight 19 was the designation of a group of 5 General Motors TBM Avenger torpedo bombers that disappeared over the Bermuda Triangle on December 5th, 1945. After losing contact during a United States Navy overwater navigation training flight from Naval Air Station, Fort Lauderdale, Florida. All 14 naval aviators on the flight were lost, as were all 13 crew members of a Martin PBM Mariner, that subsequently launched from Naval Air Station Banana River to search for Flight 19. Now, the occurrence is the date is December 5th, 1945, as said prior. The summary is disappearance site, Atlantic Ocean. No, the summary is disappearance, but the site was the Atlantic Ocean. Now, the aircraft type is a GM-built TBM Avenger. The operator, United States Navy. Flight origin is Naval Air Station, Fort Lauderdale. Destination, Naval Air Station, Fort Lauderdale. Now, the crew, there was 14 crew, 14 fatalities, injuries 0, missing 14, and 0 survivors. Now, a report by Navy investigators concluded that flight leader Lieutenant Charles C. Taylor mistook small islands offshore from the Florida Keys after his compasses stopped working, resulting in the flight heading over open sea and away from land. Now, the report was later amended by the Navy to read, cause unknown, to avoid blaming Taylor for the loss of 5 aircraft and 14 men. Now, the report attributed the loss of the PBM search aircraft to an explosion in midair while searching for the flight. That's pretty bad. Give me 1 second. Now, navigation training flight. Flight 19 undertook a routine navigation and combat training exercise in TBM type aircraft. Now, the assignment was called Navigation Problem Null, a combination of bombing and navigation that other flights had completed or were scheduled to undertake that day. Now, the flight leader, Lieutenant Charles Carroll Taylor, had about 2,500 flying hours, mostly in aircraft of this type. So he had plenty of experience in them. While his trainee pilots each had 300 total and 60 flight hours in the Avenger. Now, Taylor had completed a combat tour in the Pacific Theater as a torpedo bomber pilot on the aircraft carrier USS Hancock, and had recently arrived from Naval Air Station Miami, where he had also been a VTB torpedo bombing plane instructor. Okay, the student pilots had recently completed other training missions in the area where the flight was to take place. They were U.S. Marine Captains Edward Joseph Powers and George William Stivers, U.S. Marine Second Lieutenant Forrest James Gerber, and United States Navy Ensign Joseph Tipton Bossy. The aircraft were 3 TBM-1Cs. Okay, Bureau numbers 45714 FT3, Bureau number 46325. FT-81's Bureau number was 73209, and that was the FT-117. 1 TBM-1E, Bureau number 46094, that was the FT-36. And 1 TBM-3, Bureau number 23307, and that was FT-28. Now, give me 1 second, you guys. I'm not feeling too. Now, each aircraft was a version of the Grumman TBF Avenger, built by General Motors Eastern Aircraft Division under wartime production license. Under the U.S. Navy aircraft designation system used during World War II, Grumman-built Avengers were designated TBF and GM-built aircraft such as these were designated TBM. Now, each was fully fueled, and during pre-flight checks, it was discovered they were all missing clocks. Navigation of the route was intended to teach dead reckoning principles, which involved calculating, among other things, elapsed time. The apparent lack of timekeeping equipment was not a cause for concern, as it was assumed each man has his own watch. Now, takeoff was scheduled for 13:45 local time, but the late arrival of Taylor delayed departure until 14:10. Now, the weather at National Air Station Fort Lauderdale was described as favorable sea state, moderate to rough. Now, the exercise involved 3 legs, with the flight having flown 4, the 4th being returning to Naval Air Station Fort Lauderdale after reaching the Florida coast. Now, after takeoff, they flew on heading 091 degrees, almost due east, for 56 nautical miles, or 64 miles, or 104 kilometers, until reaching Hens and Chickens Shoals, commonly called Chicken Rocks, where low-level bombing practice was carried out. Now, the flight was to continue on that heading for another 67 nautical miles, or 77 miles, or 124 kilometers. I'm sorry, guys. I'm having a hard time talking. My voice is kind of in and out. Now, before turning onto a course of 346 degrees for 73 nautical miles, 84 miles, or 135 kilometers, in the process over flying Grand Bahama Island. Now, the next scheduled turn was to a heading of 241 degrees to fly 120 nautical miles, or 140 miles, or 220 kilometers, at the end of which the exercise was completed, and the Avengers would turn left to then return to National Air Station Fort Lauderdale. Now, give me 1 second. We'll do the flight summary. All right, you guys. Now, we're going to do the flight summary. Now, 1, they leave National Air Station Fort Lauderdale at 14:10 on heading of 091 degrees for 56 nautical miles, or 104 kilometers. They drop bombs at Hens and Chicken Shoals, and then B until about 1500. Then continue on heading 091 degrees for 67 nautical miles, or 124 kilometers. Then they turn left to heading 346 degrees and fly 73 nautical miles, or 134 kilometers. After that, they turn left on to heading 241 degrees for 120 nautical miles, or 220 kilometers, to end exercise north of Naval Air Station Fort Lauderdale. Then at 1750, radio triangulation establishes the flight's position to within 50 nautical miles, or 93 kilometers, of 29 degrees north, 79 degrees west, and their last reported course, 270 degrees. Now, the next is PBM Mariner leaves Naval Air Station Banana River at 1927. At 1950, Mariner explodes near 28 degrees north, 80 degrees west. Radio conversations between the pilots were overheard by the base and other aircraft in the area. Now, the practice bombing operation, known to have been carried out because at about 1500, a pilot requested and was given permission to drop his last bomb. 40 minutes later, another flight instructor, Lieutenant Robert F. Cox, in pt.2, who was forming up with his group of students for the same mission, received an unidentified transmission. Now, give me 1 second. All right. Now, let's go ahead and get this over with here. Get her done. An unidentified crew member asked Powers, one of the students, for his compass reading. Powers replied, "I don't know where we are. We must have got lost after that last turn." Cox then transmitted, "This is ft-74. Plane or boat calling, Powers. Please identify yourself so someone can help you." The response after a few moments was a request from the others in the flight for suggestions. ft-74 tried again, and a man identified as ft-28 Taylor came on. "ft-28, this is ft-74. What is your trouble?" "Both of my compasses are out," Taylor replied, "and I am trying to find Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I am over land, but it's broken. I am sure I'm in the Keys, but I don't know how far down, and I don't know how to get to Fort Lauderdale. FT-74 informed the National Air Station that aircraft were lost, then advised Taylor to put the Sun on his port wing and fly north up the coast to Fort Lauderdale. Base operations then asked if the flight leader's aircraft was equipped with a standard YG or IFF transmitter, which could be used to triangulate the flight's position. But the message was not acknowledged by FT-28. Later, he would indicate that his transmitter was activated. Instead, at 16:45, FT-28 radioed, "We are heading 030 degrees for 45 minutes. Then we will fly north to make sure we are not over the Gulf of Mexico." During this time, no bearings could be made on the flight, and IFF could not be picked up. Taylor was told to broadcast on 4805 kilohertz. This order was not acknowledged, so he was asked to switch to 3000 kilohertz, the search and rescue frequency. Taylor said, "I cannot switch frequencies. I must keep my planes intact." At 1656, Taylor was again asked to turn on his transmitter for YG if he had one. He did not acknowledge, but a few minutes later advised his flight, "Change course to 090 degrees, due east for 10 minutes. About the same time, someone in the flight said, "Damn it, if we could just fly west, we would get home. Head west, damn it." This difference of opinion later led to questions about why the students did not simply head west on their own. It has been explained that this can be attributed to military discipline. As the weather deteriorated, radio contact became intermittent, and it was believed that the 5 aircraft by this point were more than 200 nautical miles, or 230 miles, or 370 kilometers out to sea, east of the Florida Peninsula. Now, Taylor radioed, "We'll fly 270 degrees west until landfall or running out of gas," and requested a weather check at 1724. By 1750, several land-based radio stations had triangulated Flight 19's position as being within 100 nautical miles, 120 miles, or 190 kilometers radius of 29 degrees north, 79 degrees west. Now, Flight 19 was north of the Bahamas and well off the coast of Central Florida. At 1804, Taylor radioed to his flight, holding 270. "We didn't fly far enough east again." By that time, the weather had deteriorated even more and the sun had set. Now, around 1820, Taylor's last message was received. It has also been reported that Taylor's last message was received at 1904. Now, he was heard saying, "All planes close up tight. We'll have to ditch unless landfall. When the first plane drops below 10 gallons, or 38 liters, we all go down together." Now, let's talk about the PBM-5, Bureau number 59225. The date was the same day, December 5th, 1945. Summary is disappearance, presumed mid-air explosion. Now, the site of this one is 28.59 degrees north, 80.25 degrees west. The aircraft was a Martin PBM-5 Mariner. The operator was U.S. Navy. The flight origin was Naval Air Station Banana River. And they had a crew of 13. They had 13 fatalities and no survivors. Now, as it became obvious, the flight was lost. Air bases, aircraft, and... Excuse me, you guys. I'm getting these hiccups. Give me a second. Now, as it became obvious, the flight was lost. The flight was lost. Air bases, aircraft, and merchant ships were alerted. A consolidated PBY Catalina departed after 1800 to search for Flight 19 and guide them back if they could be located. Now, after dark, 2 Martin PBM Mariner flying boats, originally scheduled for their own training flights, were diverted to perform square pattern searches in the area west of 29 degrees north, 79 degrees west. Now, U.S. Navy Squadron Training number 49 PBM-5, Bureau number 59225, took off at 1927 from Naval Air Station Banana River, called in a routine radio message at 1930, and was never heard from again. At 21:15, the tanker SS Gaines Mills reported it had observed flames from an apparent explosion leaping 100 feet or 30 meters high and burning for 10 minutes. at position 28.59 degrees north, 80.25 degrees west. Now, Captain Shona Stanley reported unsuccessful searching for survivors through a pool of oil and aviation gasoline. The escort carrier USS Solomons also reported losing radar contact with an aircraft at the same position and time. The PBM could hold 9.83 tons of aviation fuel. Its flexible fuel lines had a noted tendency to get loose in rough conditions and leak gasoline. That's interesting. The most likely conclusion is that the PBM had a mid-air explosion. Now, investigation. A 500-page Navy Board of Investigation report published a few months later made several observations. Now, flight leader Lieutenant Charles C. Taylor had mistakenly believed that the small islands he passed over were the Florida Keys, that this flight was over the Gulf of Mexico, and that heading northeast would take them to Florida. It was determined that Taylor had passed over the Bahamas as scheduled, and he did, in fact, lead his flight to the northeast over the Atlantic. The report noted that some subordinate officers did likely know their approximate position as indicated by radio transmissions, stating that flying west would result in searching the mainland. Now, as noted in the report, Taylor refused to change the radio training frequency to the search and rescue radio frequency. The training frequency to the search and rescue radio frequency. Now, the training frequency was difficult to use because of interference from Cuban radio stations and also a radio carrier wave. Okay, so that kind of may have explanations as to why he did that. Taylor was not at fault because the compasses stopped working. The loss of PBM 5, Bureau number 59225, was attributed to an explosion. This report was subsequently amended, cause unknown, by the Navy after Taylor's mother contended that the Navy was unfairly blaming her son for the loss of 5 aircraft and 14 men, when the Navy had neither the bodies nor the airplanes as evidence. Had Flight 19 actually been where Taylor believed it to be, the flight would have made landfall with the Florida coastline within 20 minutes, depending on how far down they were. Now, however, a later reconstruction of the incident showed that the islands visible to Taylor were probably the Bahamas, well northeast of the Keys, and that Flight 19 was exactly where it should have been. The Board of Investigation found that because of his belief that he was on a base course toward Florida, Taylor actually the flight farther northeast and out to sea. Now, further, it was general knowledge at Naval Air Station Fort Lauderdale that if a plot ever became lost in the area, to fly a heading of 270 degrees due west. Likewise, a rule of thumb was that any pilot who got lost going south would simply turn his plane around with the sun on his port side left and then follow the Florida coastline heading north. Now, by the time the flight actually turned west, they were likely so far out to sea that they had already passed their aircraft's fuel endurance. This factor, combined with bad weather and the ditching characteristics of the Avenger, meant that there was little hope of rescue, even if they had managed to stay afloat. It is possible that Taylor overshot Gorda Cay and instead reached another landmass in the southern Abaco Islands. He then proceeded northwest as planned, where he fully expected to find the Grand Bahama Island lying in front of him. Instead, he eventually saw a landmass to his right side, the northern part of Abaco Island. Believing that this landmass to his right was Grand Bahama Island and his compass was malfunctioning, he set a course to what he thought was southwest to head straight back to Fort Lauderdale. However, in reality, this changed his course farther northwest toward open sea. To further add to his confusion, he encountered a series of islands north of Abaco Island, which looked very similar to the Key West Islands. The control tower then suggested that Taylor's team should fly west, which would have taken them to the landmass of Florida eventually. Taylor headed for what he thought was west, but in reality it was northwest, almost parallel to Florida. After trying trying that for a while, and with no land in sight, Taylor decided that it was impossible for them to fly so far west and not reach Florida. He believed that he might have been near the Key West Islands. What followed was a series of serious conversations between Taylor, his other aircrew, and the control tower. Taylor was not sure whether he was near the Bahamas or Key West, and he was not sure which direction he faced because of a compass malfunction. Now, the control tower informed Taylor that he could not be in Key West since the wind that day did not blow in that way. Some of the aircrew believed that their compass was working. Taylor then set a course northeast according to their compass, which should take them to Florida. Now, if they were in Key West, now when that failed, Taylor set a course west according to their compass, which should have taken them to Florida if they were in the Bahamas. Now, if Taylor had stayed on his course, he would have reached land before running out of fuel. However, at some point, Taylor decided that he had tried going west enough. He then once again set a course northeast, thinking they were near Key West after all. Finally, his flight ran out of fuel and may have crashed into the ocean somewhere north of Abaco Island and east of Florida. Now, the Avenger wreckage mistaken for Flight 19 and other searches. Let's talk about that. Now, in 1986, the wreckage of an Avenger was found off the Florida coast during the search for the wreckage of the Space Shuttle Challenger. Aviation archaeologist John Meyer raised this wreck from the ocean floor in 1990. He mistakenly believed that it was one of the missing planes. Now, in 1991, a treasure hunting expedition led by Graham Hawkes announced that the wreckage of 5 Avengers had been discovered off the coast of Florida, but their tail numbers revealed they were not Flight 19. In 2004, a BBC documentary showed Hawkes returning with a new submersible 12 years later and identifying one of the planes by its bureau number, a clearly readable 23990, as a flight loss at sea on October 9, 1943, over 2 years before Flight 19. Its crew all survived. Now, but he was unable to definitively identify the other planes. So who knows? That could have been one of them. Maybe, you never know. The documentary concluded that despite the odds, they are just a random collection of accidents that came to rest in the same place 12 miles or 19 kilometers from home. In March 2012, Hawkes was reported as saying it had suited both him and indirectly his investors and the Pentagon to make the story go away because it was an expensive and time-consuming distraction, and that while admitting he had found no conclusive evidence, a statistician he consulted said it was Flight 19. Records showed the training accidents between 1942 and 1945 accounted for the loss of 95 aviation personnel from Naval Air Station Fort Lauderdale. Now, in 1992, another expedition located scattered debris on the ocean floor, but nothing could be identified. Now, in the 2000s, searchers expanded their search area farther east into the Atlantic Ocean, but the remains of Flight 19 have still not been confirmed found. Now, a 2015 newspaper report claimed a wrecked World War II-era warplane with Navy markings and 2 bodies still inside was retrieved by the Navy in the mid-1960s after being discovered by a hunter in the woods near Sebastian, Florida. Now, the Navy initially said it was from Flight 19, but later recanted its statement. Despite Freedom of Information Act requests for details in 2013, the names are still not known because the Navy does not have enough information to identify the bodies. Now, a wrecked plane found in the Everglades in Broward County was also incorrectly postulated to be from Flight 19. In fact, this TBM-3E crashed March 16, 1947. The crash reportedly occurred because its pilot, Ensign Ralph N. Wacob, developed vertigo. Now, Wacob was killed in the crash, and as of the 2020s, no trace of the 5 TBM Avengers or the PBM Mariner and the 27 missing aviators have been found. The most likely conclusion is that the Avengers ran out of gas and ditched at sea, and the PBM experienced a mid-air explosion. Now, in fiction, Flight 19 is featured in the 1977 science fiction film Close Encounters of the Third Kind. In the film's opening, the aircraft are discovered in the Sonoran Desert in pristine condition with full fuel tanks, one of several mysterious events that was simply extraterrestrial activity. In the film's ending scene, a number of men in World War II era U.S. Naval Aviator uniforms are among the people who are returned to Earth from the alien mothership. It is implied that they are the crews of the planes of Flight 19 that turned up in the Sonora Desert at the beginning of the movie, seemingly the same age as their disappearance. However, the names they give are not those of any of the missing crews of the historical Flight 19. Now, Flight 19 made an appearance in the 2006 direct-to-DVD movie Scooby-Doo Pirates Ahoy. That's interesting. Okay, we got a little bit more here, you guys. Okay, and we're gonna touch on this. And at the end, I want you guys to throw a comment down below, whatever theories, whatever you think may have happened. We're gonna go over some of the other stuff here, some interesting theories. But yeah, just let us know what you think about that. Now we're going to talk about the crews of Flight 19 and PBM 5, Bureau number 59225. Okay, so we're going to do all the crew members. Now, aircraft FT-28 had pilot Charles Taylor, lieutenant of the USNR. Now, crew George Devlin, AOM-3C, USNR. Walter R. Parpart, ARM-3C, USNR. Bureau number 23307. Aircraft FT-36, pilot E.J. Powers, captain, USMC. Crew Howell O. Thompson, staff sergeant, USMCR. George R. Payanessa, sergeant, USMC. And this bureau number was 46094. Then you got the other aircraft, FT-3. The pilot was Joseph T. Bossy, ensign, USNR. Now, crew, Herman A. Thielander, S1C, USNR. Bert E. Balick Jr., S1C, USNR. Bureau number was 45714. Then you have FT-117. Pilot was George W. Stivers, captain, USMC. The crew was Robert P. Grubel, private, USMCR. Robert F. Gallivan, sergeant, USMC. And the bureau number of that plane was 73209. And then you have FT-81. The pilot was Forrest J. Gerber, second lieutenant, USMCR. Crew was William E. Lightfoot, PFC, USMCR. Harry G. Cohn, lieutenant, JG, USN. And then Roger M. Allen, ensign, USN. Lloyd A. Eliason, ensign, USN. And Charles D. Arseneau, ensign, USN. And Robert C. Cameron, RM3, USN. And Wiley D. Cargill, Sr., Seaman, 1st, USN. Now, he also, in an aircraft, the bureau number was 59225. Hold on. Yeah, it was 59225. Now, pilot Walter G. Jeffrey, LTJG, USN. Crew James F. Jordan, ARM-3, USN. And John T. Mendez, AOM-3, USN. Then you had Donald E. Peterson, AMM-1, USN. Alfred J. Zawicki, Seaman 1st, USN. Now, aircraft FT-81 on this particular plane was one crew member short. The airman in question was Corporal Alan Cosner. He had asked to be excused from this exercise that day, so he wasn't on that flight. And he was fortunate that he didn't go. Flight 19 conspiracy theories include explanations like alien abduction, paranormal activity, dimensional portals, and a connection to the Bermuda Triangle, which gained popularity through pulp magazines and fiction. More plausible theories suggest that the planes ran out of fuel due to navigational errors, with the official naval explanation initially pointing to the lead pilot's disorientation before being amended to an unknown cause. The disappearance of a search and rescue plane sent to find the lost flight also fuels many of the more fantastical theories. All right, let's talk about paranormal and extraterrestrial theories, okay? Bermuda Triangle. The most popular theory, first popularized by authors like Vincent Gaddis and Charles Berlitz, suggests that Flight 19 was lost in the Bermuda Triangle due to its supposed mysterious and dangerous nature. Okay. That's a theory, right? Then we got alien abduction. Some believe extraterrestrials abducted the planes and crew, with the 1977 film Close Encounters of the Third Kind famously depicting this scenario. Now let's talk about dimensional portals and time warps. Another theory posits that the area is a portal to other dimensions or time, which could explain why no wreckage was found. Other theories, some theories involve sea monsters, magnetic anomalies, or large-scale methane gas eruptions from the ocean floor. Okay, those are some different theories, right? Official and plausible theories. Navigational error. The official account suggests the flight leader, Lieutenant Charles Taylor, became disoriented, mistakenly believed he was over the Florida Keys, and that his compasses were broken. And then you have the theory of human error and malfunction. Okay, the planes likely ran out of fuel, and the official cause was changed to unknown after the Navy's initial finding of mental aberration was disputed by Taylor's mother. Now, the next theory would be weather and equipment issues. Some attribute the disappearance to a combination of human error and challenging weather conditions, despite a lack of fog mentioned in the transcript. Now, supporting evidence for theories. We have the search and rescue plane disappearance. The fact that a PBM flying boat sent to search for Flight 19 also vanished with its 13 crew members further fueled the mystery. Obviously so. Yeah, I would say so. Now, rescue planes presumed explosion. The PBM was prone to explosion, and a ship reported seeing a burst of flame around the time of the plane's disappearance, making an explosion a highly likely, though not definitive, cause. So, I mean, listen, y'all. What do you think happened to these 6 planes and all the crew members with no debris found, no bodies, nothing? I mean, honestly, I get the fact that, anything can happen in the ocean. I mean, anything can happen if you're out too far at sea. Depending on the currents at the time, where they landed, if they did crash into the water. I mean, those currents could carry that plane in which direction, wherever those currents are going. And if it's a strong current, yeah, it'll definitely sweep them away until they hit bottom. But it's a mystery to me because I can see maybe one plane and some of the other ones survived because one of them had a compass malfunction and the other ones was good. But you got 5 crash or disappear. Let's just say disappeared. And the rescue plane disappears as well. Or as they said, it exploded. But those evidently didn't explode, supposedly, what they said. So, I mean, we can run a million different scenarios, At the one point, they said that the one plane was known for leaking fuel, and that could have caused it. But let's be honest. How often would that have happened? In how many cases did that happen? How likely is it to happen? And also, on top of that, could that be, let's just say, them trying to close things up quicker? In that case alone, on that one, I'm not going to say it's not possible. I can't. I'm not going to say it's not possible. Any of these scenarios, honestly, in my opinion, who knows? Take your pick. Let me know what you think down below. I mean, I'm curious. You think aliens abducted them? I mean, let's think about that as well. Okay, if that guy said the naval pilot or naval captain said that he saw a flame of fire about 100 feet high. Let's just be honest. Could it have been a UFO shooting a laser out or something? Maybe he just mistook it for a flame. It could have looked like it. Who knows? Could have been a beam of light or something that just threw him out of whack. I don't know. Don't have no answers for it, but I'm just saying. Hey, at this point, anything's a go at this point. I mean, they really don't have nothing to go on. And as far as I'm concerned, any of these could be, who knows? I'm not going to rule out anything that sounds crazy or, you know, that a lot of them would probably rule it insane or something. It's not plausible. It's no more plausible than what the hell you're saying. You don't know what happened, but yet you're claiming this is what happened. Okay, you're using scientific data and whatever you're using to try to come to a conclusion, okay? Scientific method, whatever. That's fine. But you can't rule out something that we don't know about. You know, we really don't know much about the other stuff. Could it be Bermuda Triangle? Has that? I mean, it's known as one of them spots. I mean, it has that magnetic anomalies. Could it be methane gas explosion? Possibly, but what's the odds you're going to have two methane gas explosions under 5 planes and hit the 6th one as well in a different location? I don't know. I got to look. I have a map on here. We'll have to look at it and see how close that other one was to where they last saw the other 5. I'm not sure. I didn't look at it too much, so I don't know. But I don't know. I'm really kind of... This is a confusing one here, you guys. It really is, I think. Could it be a time warp? Could it be a multidimensional portal of some sort? Time slip or something? Who the hell knows? I can't say either one or the other. I mean, hey, till they find the planes, we'll never know. Till they find the bodies, we'll never know. So, you guys throw it down below. Let me and Noodle know what you think in the comments. Or email us at thetradingpost8124@gmail.com. Okay? If you want to be discreet. But I think this is crazy, though. I mean, it's sad that all these aviators lost their lives. You know, in a training exercise, nonetheless. And who knows how many others. You know. So you guys have a good one. Like we say on this channel, live, laugh, and love. Because tomorrow's not promised to anybody. And we'll see you on the next part of this series.